What's going on, everyone, and welcome into Plizont's podcast, filled to the brim with glitchy analysis and freezing cold takes so cold that they're boiling hot. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Hungry Howie's Baton Rouge. Check out their website, guys. I'm being serious, not just because I'm the poster boy for Hungry Howie's Baton Rouge, but they do have really good takeout deals and delivery deals. Right now, I'm looking at it. They have a large one-topping pizza for just $9.99. In this economy, go check it out. It's definitely worth it, and the pizza is actually really good. But let's go ahead and get into the meat of this podcast. We're back. I have gone through a long journey trying to figure out what I want to do in the sports world. I obviously started out with the podcast. You guys have really enjoyed it. I grew my platform, not nearly as much as I would have liked, but it still did better than zero. And that's always what I'm looking for. But most importantly to me, I just love talking about sports and engaging with a strong community that encourages positivity and love in the world of sports. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what kind of political beliefs you have. It doesn't matter where you come from. You're welcome here in this channel, and that is what is so great about sports. A lot of sports doesn't have anything to do with those things. It's all about watching individuals work on their game, their craft, what they love to do, and for us to enjoy it. It's entertainment. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much for following me along in this long journey. I have appreciated all my friends and especially my family for supporting me through this. Thank you for all of the follows, the likes, the comments, and just the encouragement and love that I get on a day-to-day basis from all of you. Thanks again. Let's go ahead and get into this podcast. We're going to be talking NBA, NFL, and last but not least, certainly college football. And it's all going to be one take. No more of this chopped up stuff. We're going to just go through it raw, uncut. So let's get into it. First up, NBA season has been phenomenal. I've actually got a little parlay skis going right now with the Knicks-Bucks game. The Knicks-Bucks game going on right now on December the 5th. Look, the gambling culture that has been established now over the last year or so in a lot of states across the country is really getting to me. The free specials that they're offering, like bet $365, bet $1, get $365 in free bets. I mean, that's nuts. Nuts. I mean, how could you not take that deal? But that's how they get you. The returns on those investments that these gambling companies makes is astronomical. The ROI is like at least double. The average intake for one of those customers is over $1,000. So, I mean, you give somebody $365 in free bets, and all of a sudden, a month later, they've put $500 on a table tennis parlay in Slovakia. So, that's a tangent. Sorry. Let's go back to what we were talking about with the NBA. It's been a phenomenal season. I have enjoyed watching it so much, and it's thanks to the in-season tournament. We're going to get into that specifically next episode, but what I want to talk about is we're always trying to improve all of our sports that we watch, and the NBA has done a good job of that this year. One more thing, though, that I would like to see is the creation of the Offensive Player of the Year award. Obviously, I'm getting this straight from the NFL, but the NBA already has the Defensive Player of the Year, so why not add an Offensive Player of the Year? It's more media attention, it's more conversation, more debate. I am sure they'd be talking about it on, First Take, Undisputed, all of these shows. But the main reason that I want to create this award is to reward one person's performance this year so far, and that's Tyrese Halliburton. He deserves the first NBA Offensive Player of the Year award. This guy's averaging 26 points, 12 assists, and has the Pacers on pace for one of the greatest offenses of all time. And it's not even close. I mean, last year the Kings offense set records for efficiency and pace, and the Pacers are not just breaking that record, but slamming through that record. Halliburton deserves the Offensive Player of the Year award because he's leading the league in points responsible for. He's averaging, like I said, 26 points, 12 assists. If each of those assists goes for 2 points at least, which that's the bare minimum, that's 50 points a game that he's responsible for. That is nuts. Give him this Offensive Player of the Year award. I love that the Pacers are probably going to head to Vegas and win the whole trophy. They have 10 players making less than $3 million. And each of those players will get $500K if they win the in-season tournament. And it's all thanks to Tyrese Halliburton. He is going to be the tournament MVP. If he's not, this is a sham. This was rigged. The script was written before the NBA season even started. Continuing with this NBA coverage, let's talk Ime Udoka. And I had to look up his name to pronounce it. I don't know why. It is like impossible for me. But Ime Udoka has got to be Coach of the Year candidate. I am for certain that this guy is the best coach in the league. He has the Houston Rockets currently in a play-in spot. I didn't expect that at all. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure I gave the Rockets a D or maybe even an F offseason grade for signing Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Let's go back to Ime Udoka. He has the Rockets playing the best defense in the league. And what's crazy about what the Rockets are doing right now is that they're not top 10 in steals or blocks, and they're one of the best defensive teams in the league. Ime Udoka deserves all of the credit for that. He's gotten complete buy-in from this Rockets team. He is my Coach of the Year so far, especially if it keeps them on this pace towards a play-in spot. All that being said, I am happy to say I was so wrong about the Rockets and what they did this offseason. I hated the Fred VanVleet signing and the Dillon Brooks signing. It's not like they're trying to win a championship this year. But they're playing tough basketball, and they're developing their young talent. Alperen Sengun, I believe is his name, and Jalen Green are looking like young stars. I mean, Alperen Sengun is averaging 21 points, almost 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. That's a top 5 center in the league right now. And Jalen Green is still developing his game. He's got to work on extending his shooting range. He plays pretty tough defense, but who I really want to applaud is Fred VanVleet. He has turned into a floor general, and I did not expect that at all. In Toronto, yes, obviously he had assists per game, but not like this. This guy is controlling an offense that is semi-effective, which is not what I thought would happen this season. So congrats to the Rockets. They're doing a great job, especially at home. Now, when we saw the Mavericks play a few years ago, they really did well at home. And it's because Luka Doncic can't win games by himself. He has to rely on role players. And that's what this Rockets team is. They're all role players with potential all-star, conversations, I guess. But those kind of players don't perform well on the road. Let me look at this real quick. I don't believe the Rockets have won a game on the road this year so far. Yeah, they're 0-8 on the road, and they have the second best home record out of anyone at 8-1. So if somehow Ime Udoka can get them to play better on the road, which is tough, definitely Coach of the Year, most surprising team, and really established young core. I love what they're doing in Houston. Let's move on. Let's talk about 2 players that are young and developing, but one player is on this trajectory, left to right, not increasing or decreasing, and the next player is going to shoot through the moon. And I think we all know who we're talking about. But first, Evan Mobley has the potential to become an all-defensive player, but I think he is plateauing, and he will probably be stuck at averaging around 16 to 17 points a game for the rest of his career. And it's going to prevent him from getting all NBA nods. I don't think he's going to be able to get all NBA nods averaging 17 and 10. And it's not because of anything that he's doing wrong. Evan Mobley probably will never make an all NBA first or second team strictly because he's got guys like Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. They control the ball, they control the offense, and it's going to prevent him from scoring buckets. Evan Mobley, I just don't see it happening. Now, I watched him the other night versus Atlanta. He had 6 blocks in the fourth quarter alone. Absolutely insane stuff. He will be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversations. I just don't ever see him being like a premier forward in this league, and it's strictly because of the roster construction that he has on the Cavaliers. And he's definitely not leaving the Cavs anytime soon. He's got to get his rookie extension, and he'll be a solid guy. And that's something that we can all applaud. I don't, dismiss what the Cavaliers are doing. I'm a fan. Why not? Evan Mobley, I see who you really could be, but I don't know if you'll ever reach that full potential. Like I said, not because of your own doing, but because of the construction of the roster that you're on. Moving on, though, a player that is shooting up through the moon. I know that ESPN has absolutely glazed this man. I have to as well. I can't help myself. Victor Wembanyama is performing so far above my expectations. It's not even funny. Like, he came in October and he struggled with fouls, turnovers, and shooting from the field. Now, he obviously had the blocks. That was never a question for me. But my question was his body, his slender shape and form, was that able to, perform against top tier talent in the rest of this league? The answer is absolutely. He went from averaging like 17 or 18 points per game, 7 rebounds, a few blocks, with about 4 turnovers and 4 fouls a game in October, to now in December, he's already averaging over 20 points per game, 10 rebounds, 2.5 blocks. He's gone up in his shooting. His turnovers and fouls have gone down. This guy is getting the game before the game even comes to him. And that's not something that you say with most rookies. That's what I want to point out. Wembanyama, not only is he going to be Defensive Player of the Year in at least the next 2 or 3 years, but we could seriously be talking about him being an MVP in maybe 2 years. In his 3rd season, I would not be shocked if he was top 5 in MVP voting. That's where I stand on him right now. He's really just blowing my mind. Now, on the complete other end of the age spectrum, let's talk about Stephen Curry. He is aging like fine wine. And it is such a shame that the Warriors are probably not going to be finals contenders. As a Warriors fan, it's very frustrating, but I can't obviously be too frustrated. 4 championships, I think, 7 finals appearances, but the Warriors have to get some kind of help for Stephen Curry. Chris Paul is a redundant addition to this Warriors team. I think he can contribute to a playoff team, just not this team. Now, he's averaging 8.7 assists in his limited minutes. Very, very good for him. But him and Draymond Green kind of fit the same role on offense, and they both do kind of similar things on defense. Commanding and anchoring that defense is what old vets do. I just don't see any room for him on this team. I think there would be some kind of trade package that I would offer with Chris Paul and Jonathan Kuminga for an established 6th man that is probably a forward, similar to Andrew Wiggins. That is what the Warriors need coming off the bench. A strong defensive guy who can stretch the floor while also not being a hindrance to the defense. That's what they're looking for. I would love to see Stephen Curry get back to the finals. I would love to see him win an MVP. I think he has a chance to be one of the 5 greatest players of all time. Personally, he is one of that for me, but to a lot of other people, he's top 10, but definitely not top 5. I think he needs another ring and another MVP to really establish that, and the time is running out, and I think we all know that. Now, last topic that we're going to talk about for the NBA today. The most surprising rookie for me is not Victor Wembanyama, although I am shocked at the level of improvement that he's already made. Asar Thompson is my surprise rookie of this year. Currently, give me 1 second. I'm going to check his stats real quick. They change every day. I write these podcast scripts, yesterday, and the stats change dramatically. I don't know how. I'm not a big math guy, just a little math guy. 1 second. Let's see here. There he is. He currently is averaging 10 points, 9 rebounds, and about 3 assists. But to me, that's shocking. He came out of the Overtime Elite League. He was the 5th pick after his brother Amin, and he is exceeding all of my expectations. When looking at his scouting report, I think I had him as like the 6th or 7th best prospect for this draft, but he's playing like the 3rd best player in this draft class. Victor Wembanyama is playing a little better. Yami Jaquez. Hey, I'm so sorry. I just butchered his name. You guys know who I'm talking about for the Heat. He's been playing really well, but Ausar Thompson has fit really well on this Pistons team, and I'd like to applaud the Pistons for picking Ausar Thompson. It was a solid pick, and I can't hate on them for it. I give the Pistons an F for their offseason grade. Well-deserved. They're not that good of a team. Oh, no. My computer has decided to start blasting music. Back to the main point. Ausar Thompson has really exceeded my expectations. I did not expect him to be this good of a rebounder. His shooting percentage is already getting better. What he really just needs to work on now is his actual shooting. He has no mid-range game, no three-point game. He's not that big. He's only 6'6", but he's really done well at getting to the paint, grabbing rebounds, and playing defense. And that's really all you can ask for a young wing-type player that doesn't have a shooting game. That all being said, that's our NBA content. Let's move on to the NFL. First up, let's see here. We have the Jets. What is going to happen with the New York Jets? In my opinion, Aaron Rodgers is pretty much done. He had, I think, 5 plays, maybe even less than that, maybe 3 plays with the New York Jets. And his career is most likely over with the New York Jets. And it's not because of anything that he did. It's simply because Robert Saleh is on the verge of losing this locker room. There is a lot of talk about this Jets team, but the main conversation has to do with Zach Wilson starting, then getting benched. Now he's supposedly maybe coming back, but according to reports, he doesn't want to. I don't know. The rest of this Jets team is ready to win now, and they're not winning. And it's because of the quarterback position and the offensive line, I guess. But Robert Saleh is on the verge of losing the Jets locker room, and I think that's going to end with probably him and maybe GM Joe Douglas getting fired. This whole Jets team is going to go into a rebuild. The older vets are probably going to get traded or cut. All of their draft picks are going to stay in New York. They're going to build a whole new young team surrounded by guys like Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, and they're going to be looking for a new quarterback. That's just the price of the gamble that the Jets, went out, tried to get Aaron Rodgers, giving up draft picks for him, tears his Achilles. The dream's over. Obviously, the Jets aren't making the playoffs, and their outlook for next season is not looking great either. So I think that's going to end up in Robert Saleh and probably Joe Douglas losing the job. I don't think that they should. I think they're a good coach and GM, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometime in the NFL. The NFL stands for not for long, and that is exactly what coaches and GMs have, not long, to build up a team and get them ready to compete for the playoffs. We just saw that with Frank Reich. Frank Reich literally had less than a year. He is the 3rd coach in the last 3 seasons to get fired within year 1. That's insane. Urban Meyer, Nathaniel Hackett, and Frank Reich. Let's move on, though. Speaking of head coaches, Eric Bieniemy will be a head coach somewhere at the end of this season. Mark my words. He has turned the Washington Commanders offense into a pretty efficient one, and he's made Sam Howell look like a franchise-type quarterback, which is more than impressive to me. And I think he took a risk going to Washington this offseason in the same role as an offensive coordinator. Eric Bieniemy has turned the Washington Commanders into a competitive team on the offensive end. Now, the defensive end has completely collapsed, but I think the NFL is finally going to reward Eric Bieniemy with the head coaching job simply due to the fact that, like I said, he has turned Sam Howell into a franchise quarterback. The offense looks like it's turning out all right, despite the offensive line being one of the worst in the league. And yeah, I think Eric Bieniemy deserves it. He has obviously given all of his time to the NFL. He has paid the price, and now it's time to reap the rewards. Somebody better give him a head coaching job. Where I think he's going to get that job? Carolina Panthers. Let's talk about them real quick. Frank Reich was a temporary scapegoat for the Panthers GM, Scott Fitterer. Let's just be honest. The Panthers roster is atrocious, and it's going to cost Bryce Young probably his NFL career. I didn't think that he was going to end up having a good one because he had to have the perfect fit, the perfect situation, very similar to Tua. Tua has to have Tyreek Hill Jalen Waddle, and an offensive genius in Mike McDaniel to really look like a successful top 15, in my opinion, top 10 quarterback. Bryce Young is the exact same way. And Frank Reich was the scapegoat for Bryce Young's failures. But it is not going to be the end. This Panthers roster is horrible, and it's going to end up being all blamed on Scott Federer as soon as the new coach comes in for the Panthers and realizes that Adam Thielen and Miles Sanders are not going to develop Bryce Young. That's going to be it for the GM for the Panthers. I don't see any other way this shakes out other than a new complete rebuild on top of the rebuild they're already doing. Because guess what? In 2024, they do not have their first round pick. And that's going to end up costing them a lot of wins over the next few years. But moving on, I want to talk about Nick Wright and the prince that was promised. Trevor Lawrence went down last night with an injury in Monday Night Football. I had already written this part of the podcast before last night's game, but last night's game reinforced my opinion even more. The Cincinnati Bengals defense is by no means top 15. It's probably bottom third of the league, especially this year with Joe Burrow being out. And Trevor Lawrence had to go band for band with Jake Browning, the backup quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. Unacceptable, in my opinion, in year 3. Year 2, Trevor Lawrence, it was really year 1 with Doug Peterson, so he took a giant leap from his year with Urban Meyer. But I needed to see so much more in year 3. He only has 13 touchdowns on the year, 7 interceptions, maybe 8. Not good enough, in my opinion, as a Jags fan. The weapons are unreal. Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones, Travis Etienne. No excuse for the Jags' poor play. They are in the bottom third of the league in red zone percentage. Trevor Lawrence has to come back healthier than ever, stronger than ever. He struggled with injuries, but he's got to play better than he has this entire season. Going up against the San Francisco 49ers, he looked horrendous, and that's exactly the type of teams that you're going to be seeing in the playoffs. Year 3 has got to be a strong finish for Trevor Lawrence if I ever want to put the Jags in Super Bowl contention. Speaking of Super Bowl contention, it's their year. It's got to be. And I'm looking at you, my good friend, Evan Morse. The Dallas Cowboys can be taken seriously as Super Bowl contenders if, and only if, they beat the Philadelphia Eagles in primetime on Sunday. Dak has been an MVP candidate for the last 2 or 3 weeks, but I need to see them beat a really, really good team. Beating up on the Carolina Panthers is not good enough. The Cowboys have to beat the Philadelphia Eagles if anybody in the media, if anybody in the Cowboys fan base wants to take them seriously as Super Bowl contenders. That's it. Dak has been averaging over 300 yards a game and 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns a game in the last 7 games since the 49ers blowout. I just need to see it. I got to see it in prime time to believe in the Cowboys. Now, last but certainly not least, let's talk about the college football playoff. I have seen so many different arguments and so much disappointment and joy, but that's what the college football playoff is all about. Joy, pain, disappointment, struggle, prove all naysayers wrong, or whatever Nick Saban is saying now. But let's talk about my 4 thoughts about what the playoff committee could have done, did do right, did do wrong. Number 1, the best 4 teams got in, okay? Alabama beat Georgia. They've got to be the better team. I know people can make the argument that Georgia is still a better team than Alabama. Fine. But the best 4 teams got into the playoffs. Florida State clearly deserved to be in the playoff. But that's not what the committee is deciding on. They put the best 4 teams in my opinion. And that's just the way, like I said earlier, the cookie crumbles. It sucks that Florida State couldn't get in. What Jordan Travis tweeted the other day was devastating. It actually hurt my heart, and I am an Alabama fan. I just think that the playoff committee did the right thing. They put in a team in Alabama that is going to actually compete against Michigan for a chance at a national title. That's what fans want to see across the country, competition. No one wants another TCU Georgia game. No one wants another Alabama Notre Dame or Alabama Cincinnati game. They want best on best. That is what college football really needs right now. And so I am a firm believer that the playoff committee did the right thing putting Alabama in. Now, the second thing, back to what I said earlier, Florida State just caught a tough break. But they have a chance to prove everybody wrong and claim a national title against against Georgia. Florida State can beat Georgia and claim a national title, in my opinion. And they absolutely should. But it's a really big caveat. They have to beat Georgia. And I don't think that they will be able to. If they could prove me wrong, absolutely. Put them as a national title winner, along with Alabama, just like UCF did in 2017. Third thought. This is the best playoff in the history of the playoffs. We have 4 teams that can seriously contend for a national title. There is not a 4th team out there like a TCU, like a Cincinnati, like a Notre Dame that we're just thinking, hell no. There's no way they can win a national championship. Alabama, as the 4 seed, has the second best odds to win it. Good job, college football, for finally figuring out parity. So I guess I applaud the NCAA for their non-action in NIL. Actually, I don't. The NCAA is one of the worst organizations in the world. Okay? So that's my opinion on that. Let's move on. This would have been the perfect year for the 12-team playoff. And what I want to criticize the NCAA about now is that they could have done this. This is not a governing body that has to apply laws. Let me rephrase that. This is not a government. This is not something with strict rules and laws with a court system or anything like that. This is the NCAA. Who are they held accountable by? Absolutely no one. They could have come out and made an executive decision to make the 12-team playoff this year. And they absolutely should have. Florida State would have gotten their chance at a national title. We could have seen how good Oregon was outside of the Pac-12. We could have seen Ohio State get their redemption arc, similar to Georgia. And we also would have gotten some surprise teams, maybe even LSU and Jay Daniels would have gotten in. We could have seen the Heisman winner compete in the playoffs. This would have been the perfect 12-team playoff year. And I am really upset that the NCAA didn't make some kind of exception, because they do that all the time. Those are my thoughts on the NCAA playoff this year, the college football playoff. Let's move on and talk about the 4 teams. I'm pretty much done talking about Florida State. Like I said, it sucks that they're not going to get in, but that's all I could say. The playoff committee did do the right thing in putting Alabama in, but let's go ahead and talk about Michigan. If there was a year for the Michigan Wolverines to win a national title, this would be the year. J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, Jim Harbaugh, it seems that they're at the peak of their powers. Now, what they really lack is the it factor on offense. They play very physical football, and I can applaud that any day of the week. That's the kind of football I enjoy watching. But when it comes to making the play, I don't see anyone on offense in the skill position group that can do that. And that's pretty concerning. Now, everybody's talking about how good Michigan's defense is. But I do want to say, they've only played one team that's in the top 50 in yards per game or scoring. And that's Ohio State, who put up a lot of yards and had a lot of potential to put up even more points than they did with 24. But that well exceeds the expectations of Michigan's 8.5 points allowed per game. All in all, Michigan, this is potentially their year, but they have to show the entire country that this is not a team that's going to lose in the first round again. If not, I think Jim Harbaugh is probably going to go to the NFL. There's too many scandals, too many allegations, and not enough winning, in my opinion, in the college football playoff for Michigan to continue this sustained success if they lose to Alabama in the first round. Now let's talk about the Washington Huskies. To me, this is the best offense in the playoff. Rome Odunze is the best skill player. Michael Penix is the best quarterback out of all four of the playoff quarterbacks. I am a big supporter of what they've done up in Washington. They've really placated to what they're good at. And what they're good at is getting in shootouts, which they absolutely can do with Texas, Alabama, and even Michigan. I think this Washington team has the best resume, but what I'm really concerned about is the fact that they've been in 7 one-possession games this year. This is very similar to what happened to TCU last year. The difference between Washington and TCU is that Washington was in these one-score games. Washington was in these one-score games with ranked opponents like Utah, Oregon State, and Oregon. TCU was getting into one-score matchups with Kansas and Iowa State. Big difference, especially given the fact that a lot of these one-score games for Washington were on the road, and for TCU, they were at home. I digress. Washington has the best resume. The only concern that I have is their pass rush. Their pass rush is atrocious, only 19 sacks on the year, and that's exactly what you're going to need to do to stop a quarterback like Quinn Ewers. You're going to need to get him on the ground, and if the Washington Huskies can't do that, I don't see them getting out of the first round. Third on my list, Texas. It looks like this is the best team out of anybody in the college football playoff. I don't know if they are. I'm just saying they look like it, especially after their performance against Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship. I do want to say, though, health is a huge factor. Obviously, they lost Jonathan Brooks for the year, their running back. But their secondary is riddled with injuries, and they have to get healthy to compete with Washington in the first round. Texas, to me, has the best weapons, has the best... Actually, I take that back. No, I said that about Washington. Texas has really good weapons, but Quinn Ewers has got to show that he can do this once again in another big game. He did it against Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship. He did it against Alabama, but we have to see it one last time versus Washington for me to believe that this is the best team in the college football playoff. Xavier Worthy has had a tremendous year. He also has to get healthy. The number one factor for Texas in the college football playoff, in my opinion, it's health. If they're not healthy, they're not beating Washington. If they do, they're definitely not beating Michigan or Alabama. Speaking of Alabama, let's talk about them. As an Alabama fan, this has been my favorite team out of all the years that I've watched Alabama. I love the personalities. I love Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terrion Arnold, Jalen Milroe especially. I really like the message that Nick Saban has been preaching. Let all naysayers know. This Alabama team has probably been the most doubted out of any of the national title contenders, and that's what I really appreciate. Look, I'll be honest. This Alabama team, it's not the best out of any of the national title contenders over the last 15 years. But Dallas Turner is the best player on defense in the college football playoff this year. And I think he is going to be the difference maker in Alabama beating Michigan. I definitely think this Alabama team has all the potential in the world to win a national championship. They're probably the second or third best team in the playoff. I'm a firm believer that this offense, as long as it sticks to running the football, as long as it sticks to joyless murder ball, they're going to beat Michigan and they're going to win a national title. I have been very firm on my take at Alabama. I said they were going 12-0. They went 11-1. I said they were going to beat Georgia. That's exactly what they did. And I'm a firm believer that Jalen Milroe is going to be making his case, not for this year's Heisman, but for next year's Heisman early on. He is that guy and has been since he got his job back after the USF game. Now, that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to do it for this episode of Plizont's podcast. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Please keep engaging with this page. I appreciate it so much. Thank you all so much again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.